For joining my session. Today I will try to share with you my experience gained during work on pretty interesting, from my point of view at least, project. So that will be kind of a short story about 1 year of work. So I will tell you a little bit about the platform itself, about the process of development, and of course about some fuck-ups and lessons we learned. So Dimpact WIM, bumpy road of building reusable platform for municipalities from project manager perspective. My name is Elena Moskalik. I'm a project manager, obviously, at Lemberg Solutions Limited, and that's a company that is situated in Lviv. We're working mostly on mobile projects and on web projects, and one of those actually WIM. So here you can see short description that is available on Drupal.org. So what is WIM itself? WIM is a free reusable website model designed by and for local government and municipalities. Also, there is 3 supporting organizations that are involved. Gold Gorilla, our good partner. We are working together with these guys like almost, I think, 2 years. We successfully developed together multiple projects, and you have a chance today to talk to some of these guys. They are over there. They are from Netherlands. Also Lemberg, I told you already about us, and Dimpact, cooperative association from the Netherlands who actually created previous version of the platform and didn't want to stop with already reached results. So they say that life is too short to build something nobody wants. That's why we as human beings keep developing ourselves and the world surrounding us. And that counts also for the projects that we develop. We're doing our best to make them better and better. That was the starting point for our project. Realization that some things in WIM 1.0 should be changed and improved. So yeah, but there is the thing about it that you cannot force people to use something if they don't like it. Yeah, of course you can try to use hypnosis, but it sounds like not such a good and risky business idea. So we choose another way, and that was the way of asking people what do they want. In such a way, representatives of governments and towns were involved on all stages of the project, from analysis until migration. So, yeah. As I told, the decision to move on was made, and everyone was realizing that changes are necessary. And the first thing to do was defining problems. You see, I put here a quote that we adore cows because we love to produce order. And producing order started with checking the issues that seem to be most uncomfortable for different groups of users. And there was actually 3 groups of such users: municipalities, end users, and Dimpact. So, for municipalities, the first problem was the problem of present choice, I would say. So WIM 1.0, there is a lot, really, was huge quantity of different features, a different functionality, which is good from one point of view, but as well, a lot of this functionality was not used in a correct way. So, and part of this functionality wasn't used at all. All UI customization were made just by adding some code to CSS file, which with time was becoming huge, messy, and hard to interact with. In order to give to the site special look and changes in the way that will match the requirements of municipalities and of the users that will going to check these sites, some custom features were added, but with time also these custom features got alternative solutions, less complex and easier to support. And for example, if the new one person would join such a project and will try to check all this custom code, it will be pretty hard to do. Then, for end users, no adaptation for mobile devices, which is kind of unacceptable things in our modern world. Because when you're especially traveling and going to check some town, want to know about it, first thing I think that you will check its official site. And probably you will use your phone or your tablet for that. And if there is no such an option, well, it's not so good. Also, UI had to be optimized, improved to make it more user-friendly, because there were some accessibility issues discovered. And that is also the thing that should be improved. And for Dimpact, they, as people who want to provide the high-quality product, realize that they want to change the platform, make it better, and there is like no final line when it comes to perfection, you know. And sure, there is a thing that can be missed and ignored. Our world is about competition, and if you want to be popular and successful, you should keep moving to provide best services. So, from problems which we defined, we came to challenges. And there was basic 4 of those. First one challenge was focus on the distribution. So, all cities want some unique things. But first of all, they have a basement. This distro, which provides like basic functionality, and it's already kind of best practices of Drupal. The second challenge was optimization of functionality. As I already noticed, there was a lot of things that were not in use or had more elegant alternatives. Third one is balance in quantity of features. Still, everyone wanted to give to the site like kind of special look, and the goal was to keep enough functionality to give this opportunity to people, but keep it simple at the same time. And the fourth challenge is custom CSS. So when you're using the distro, so a new theme can be updated, but you already, again, have this basement that is already good to go. So if you don't want, you're just using distribution, and that's pretty it. So, about the project itself, about its life cycle. There was the first phase of investigation, then development, and the third one, the longest one and most interesting, migration. Investigation started in around early May. And yeah, it was consisting of analysis of architecture, analysis of UI, and phase of global planning. So great work was done by guys from Gold Gorilla in terms of analysis of the site, sites that were already using the previous version of the platform. And here, special credit goes to Peter Polman, Brampton Hoff, and Stefano Tabarelli, because these guys were actually checking all this, the platform and the implementations, previous ones, and they did really great work. And result of this was systemized information regarding which functionality is used, which can be cut off, and what is used pretty rarely. And yeah, regarding the features that were used pretty rarely, that's the point when the fun starts, because someone was using that, and people don't want to miss things that they common with. So each of these features was discussed, and there was like mini fight about it, and some still present in Dimpact WIM, and some still were cut off. So, and after this investigation, in the end of that, we got more or less clear idea what should be included in new product. And we started, we switched to feature breakdown. Also, you can see here like some screenshot that's how this analysis phase was, what does it look like actually. So in the top you can see the names of municipalities. In the in the left column there is features, and with different colors marked some that were in use, that were not in use, or rarely used. Also, same was done in terms of UI analysis. There was detailed analysis of some custom features that were added to each site, and yeah, in the end we had the systematization of details that are most common and should be included in this track. And here is our global planning that really helped us to understand how many force will be necessary, and also which Scrum events we will have. And it's pretty handy to use, so everyone can just check it out, see that, for example, Mihailo Gray will be working, how much? 73 hours for this sprint. So, yeah, just a nice thing to have. So, investigation was completed and we came to development. There was a defined methodology that we will use. It was Scrum, and we decided that it will be 6 sprints. Each will be 3-week length. So our 400 hours for each sprint will be used. And sprint cycle key moments will be sprint planning, development, UAT, refinement session, sprint review, and retrospective. And to talk a little bit about how we were doing that, we defined that it will be good practice to have like some sort of teams. The first one is Ready Team, and these guys were working on feature design. So it was about the work about making sure that the product will remain stable and sustainable. Then Done team, and they had three goals: detailed implementation approach, code review, and automated tests. The first one that was about ensuring that each developer understands what to do and uses best practices from the point of technical approach. Code review, of course, ensure that implementation meets Drupal standard and best practices. And automated tests to ensure that existing functionality is still working and there's no regressions. Then we had QA team, which was working on manual testing, cross-browser and cross-platform testing, and accessibility testing. So manual testing to ensure that functionality works as expected, cross-browser, cross-platform tests, of course, to make sure that the product is working well on different devices and in different browsers. And accessibility tests, they were about ensure that site is accessible for everyone, especially for people with some disabilities. And then UAT team. We wanted to make sure not only that the product is high quality from our, as developers, point of view. Also, it was necessary to make sure that it meets expectation of end users. So, Dimpact was proceeding with user acceptance testing, and yeah, they were providing us with some feedback that we could use further in development. And yeah, useful tips again that we had. So, we had slice and dice sessions. What is that? It was about splitting huge features, which we call epics, into user stories. There were involved our technical leads, and they were writing the description and the way of implementation. Then refinement sessions. There was present actually development team, the guys who were exactly writing code, and we were reviewing the description that was earlier prepared by during slice and dice session, adding some technical steps and estimations. Then, of course, sprint planning. It was about checking once again what we wrote earlier, make sure that the estimation is correct. Then, talk about behead tests. As I already told, one of the goals was to make the product really high quality. And behead tests really help in that, because some part of work you're already not doing manually, just picking the button and making sure that everything works and nothing failed. Or failed. Then internal QA, of course, and so we were proceeding with UI tests, functional testing, and running beheads. Then UAT at Dimpact site, again, UI, functional, and checking beheads. And yeah, sprint review. During, we were preparing a demo after each sprint to share it with municipalities, and these guys were checking it out and were providing some feedback to Dimpact. There was like work group meetings where representatives of different cities were gathered together, were checking what we have done, and letting know if they like that, basically, or they don't. The feedback was processed, and Dimpact, as product owner, were including some of these tips as user stories or tasks in backlog, and they were processed in further next sprints. And then we come to migration. So migration, I think it was the hardest part of work because it's always fun. And we switched to another methodology, Kanban, because we realized that to plan properly sprints will be a thing that will be hard to do, actually. We kept the same guys for migration phase, which was good from the point that they already know the product and they can compare better than anyone else the implementation that municipalities had in previous version of the platform, and they knew the structure of new one, and the idea was that these guys can match it as well as it just possible. Then another thing was cooperative work on preparing migration details and migration plan. So talking about migration details and migration plan. Migration plan was about sharing with municipalities when we start the work, what will be done, and when they can start user acceptance testing. So we decided that it will be like in that way. First we develop, then each city have 2 weeks for check everything. After that we have bug fixing period. After that, one more UAT period for them to make sure that we fix it all they wanted. And after that will be released. So migration plan is about share with each municipality details about release, about the work process, and if any changes to that were made, we also were sharing these details with cities. And about migration details, well, I can show you, I think, on this next slide. So migration details, it was the huge document where altogether we, Gorilla, Dimpact, and municipalities, we all were working together on that to get as much information about current implementation as possible. So municipalities were in charge of providing us details, what custom code they have, what contrib and custom modules they used, what changes to distribution actually they made. So we realized how many work it will take to proceed with this migration. And it was pretty handy to have the simple spreadsheet for that is shared with anyone involved and can be checked at any moment when it's necessary. Then what we also have, I already told you about UAT periods. And we also were preparing Jira manuals and UAT checklist for municipalities. UAT checklist was just the set of things that we do recommend to check out. And Jira manuals were provided for them because we really wanted them to check everything properly and get the feedback. So it was just for making sure that all discovered issues are properly reported by towns. And of course, we shared the information about improvements in comparison to what they had in WIM 1.0. And the most interesting, I think, part, that's lessons learned. So to tell about, yeah, we shared a lot of information, but people usually like what they have. So yeah, and we faced, like, I think, a lot of interesting cases. There were some troubles on the way, and I would like to share these parts of our experience with you. So Woody Allen said once, if you're not failing every now and again, it's a sign that you aren't doing anything very innovative. Hence, I can say that we are pretty innovative because we are failing. And when you're trying to do something really good, you have to fall and rise again. So, it's obvious thing, but for real, you have to get everything documented, but to keep it simple. At some point, we realized that we have a lot of documentation, and we had a lot of information, and nobody had an idea which of them we should check. So we started to put things together and have like one main document. For example, if you talk about resource planning, yeah? First we had resource planning, and then separate document when we were putting in like spent hours to compare our estimations, our plans to what we have in real. But then we realized that, yeah, we just can combine to have all this information in one doc, and it's kind of more comfortable in terms of overview. Then another thing that is also obvious, but still a lot of people, we're all talking about that, and pretty often we're forgetting about that, knowledge sharing. That's very important, and we realized that in practice when there came a moment that I was in need to take over my colleague Bianca. And as we had everything pretty good documented, and we were sharing information about what we do, who we communicate with, the result of this communication, it was still hard but feasible. And another case when Bram and Stefano were switching to another project, and Rico were taking over them, and he was a totally new person to the project, and he still was able to make things up and running pretty fast. For me, it's also a sign that, well, we did good work in terms of knowledge sharing. Then, about all these fights about functionality. It was really hard sometimes to make people accept that some functionality will be cut off. There were some workgroup meetings during the creation of the platform, and then during migration, we had communication with every municipality. So there were several guys from their side, and vendors, usually who were working on their sites, on improvements, on support and stuff. And we were sitting together and trying to make them trust that the thing that we do and that they accepted during creation of the platform, that are really good, and they have to proceed with some changes, not just migrate all they had. But they exactly wanted that. So it was hard to change people's minds. Also, there was another thing about municipalities and about talking to them, language barrier. These guys are all from the Netherlands, and some were just refusing to talk in English because they were thinking that their English is not perfect enough, and there was kind of overworked. So I was sending some emails and was getting no response at all. So they were sending some emails back to Taco or to other guys who were also involved, but they were never responding to me because they were kind of shy. But from one point of view, it's funny, but in terms of communication, and when you need to get some response pretty fast to keep moving, it's really a serious problem. Yeah, estimations. Estimations is always fun, especially when it comes to migration. And we really fucked up with it, because our estimation appeared to be pretty optimistic, two-way optimistic. And if you don't have enough time to proceed with analysis with every website, and we didn't have so much time, well, in the end, you will probably fail with that. So actually, visually, these sites were kind of, oh, it's easy to do. Like it's, well, simple one. But when you're taking a look inside, you do understand that really a lot of custom stuff that is, God knows how was used, and you had to make sense of all of it and, yeah, make it look nice in the end. And that takes some time, of course. And then another problem, another lesson learned, that was team burnout. As I told you, we kept same guys for migration phase. And it was good for the project, but at some point I realized it's not so good for people. Because when their colleagues started to work with Drupal 8 and they were curious about that, they didn't have this possibility to switch to something new, to learn something new, and they still were working on migration, which is kind of boring work, to be honest, yeah. But yeah, we went through that. But now all these developers run away because they told me just now, like, okay, we were listening about Dimpact for 1 year already, we can stand it another 40 minutes. So, yeah, people getting tired. There was also another project, another trouble with this migration that's, yeah, these guys were building the platform. It was their blood inside this project. And then when municipality is telling that, no, we don't want this. We don't want this cool feature that you develop. We want something not so good that we had before. And they had to implement that had to accept that. And that was pretty hard in terms of like moral decision, yeah. And another thing, hosting. Always check the smallest details about that, because otherwise, at some point, you can realize that you have your production sites on unstable beta version environment, which kind of, which about stop working every now and then. And we had this case, and yeah, it was a hard thing to explain people why their site were not working at certain moments. But yeah, that was it. That's where we were. Yeah, I think that's pretty it from my side. Maybe it was a little bit messy. But yeah, maybe any questions?
Thank you for your great topic description. Could you please scroll to the slide when you displayed distribution of phases during the year? That is maybe 6th slide. Yeah.
This one, I mean.
So could you please tell what is initial calculation of migration phase before
I'm sorry,
started?
could you please like talk closer?
What was the initial estimation of migration phase before you started it?
Well, about the estimation, the fail with that it wasn't done by guys who were working on that, so it was honestly from ceiling from the top of the head. So, oh, it's looking like it will take 40 hours. Yeah,
yeah, but it took from you 7 months, and the initial
well,
was
yeah,
40.
we were working on that for pretty long time. So we had also the budget from the client, and we had to be based on that as well. So the estimations in the end were approximate, and to talk about the long period of time that it took, well, you see, for example, like last 3 months, there was not such a lot of exact development. It was more about UAT periods. So we had this overlapping, I don't know, I don't have it here. So to explain you, we had these overlapping migrations. So at the same time we're working on one site, we start checking migration details for another. And it was kind of going one by one with some like week or two overlaps in the end. And last month, as I said, it was about checking stuff. So last municipalities, Waller, for example, they have a lot of sub-sites. So, and they required more time, like I think it's already about months or even more that they're checking everything. And there is kind of small fixes, but still the project is not completed while everything not released.
And what was the source? What was the initial search CMS you migrated to Drupal?
Well, it was Drupal to Drupal.
Also too?
Yeah.
So just content migration?
Yeah, it just was used in a weird way.
Okay. And could you please scroll to next slides when there are any of municipalization?
I'm sorry, analysis, yeah?
Next. For example, if I'm I'm working with Essen and I need to make little change fix, whom do your team I should assign my change request? Or you're working...
change requests?
Yeah.
Well, change requests were cut it off at all, to be honest, because our goal was to migrate what they already have. It was a piece of work. You can trust it. And each municipality usually works with vendors which supporting their sites, which making these changes. So after release, they can ask their vendor to make some change requests.
So you're working only with distro?
Yeah.
Oh,
so we were trying to make matching with from old version to new one.
A lot of headache goes behind of you.
I'm sorry?
A lot of headache goes behind of you. Because vendors do the job. Yeah. And just remark that estimation for a cup that is a word from the PM of 90s level.
So thank you for the great presentation. I always appreciate presentation with fuck-ups. And
well, I'll do my best.
Because I always can learn something from that presentation. And my question is mostly not about past, about future. So I've missed from your presentation the risk management. And I believe that at some level you have it, but what major 3 points you will like change or add to your estimation in terms of risk management?
In terms of risk management, I would just do it in totally another way. You see, we did really good work while analysis when we were preparing to build the platform. And in the end, we spent even less time than was supposed. So, but for migration phase, I would change it totally because normally we should check every site before starting the migration process and then only provide estimates. That would be right way to do that. But as we already shared the estimations with municipalities and they saw it, and Dimpact saw it, if we would starting to change everything, they would just tell, oh, okay guys, you need 3 times more time. Oh no, we are not up to that.
From my experience, it's not possible to check every site, ever.
Well, more or less, you know. At least more or less.
Because
so of course you cannot take into account everything. It's just impossible. I totally agree with you. But at least you can do your best to manage risks, right? And we basically didn't do that.
Okay, fast. And 2 more.
I'm sorry?
So I was asking about 3 items, yeah.
Okay. I think I put already too much in my first point, but what else I would change? Well, maybe I actually would change the team. Because as I told, guys were really exhausted in the end. So I would try to somehow add new people, like add new blood to the team to make people feel more comfortable with that. And also then guys could have like some relief and start work on new projects based on Drupal 8, learn new things.
Maybe we should also take into account that municipalities take a lot of time to test everything. And that's also
Yeah. And actually, there's a third point. I wouldn't give so much time to municipalities to check things.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for real, guys, because it maybe sounds not so good for for end user, but longer they test, they trying to squeeze in more and more stuff that shouldn't be there. So as I told, they had some even shitty things inside, and they're like, oh, it's mismatch. So you have the padding here like 1 pixel more or less. And we are saying like, guys, we have new UI, it was optimized, it became better. But they, oh no, it's different. We want the same.
Yeah.
So that's the third thing I see.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
And what your plans are about migration to Drupal 8?
About migration to Drupal 8,
When it should be done?
I'm not thinking about it. I don't want to talk about it.
So lucky that you're not thinking about that.
Well, at some point, I think maybe these guys will want the migration to Drupal 8, but I don't think it will be like nearest time for real, because the platform was released not so many time ago, and people just getting used to that for the moment. So. Yeah.
to 60.
Yeah, and they were using actually this pretty interesting functionality, Felix blocks, when you could move everything around. And they had like, I don't know, really a lot of regions that we combined, and in the end they're left, I think, about 10. From 50 or something like that. Yeah. Okay. I think if that's all, thank you all again for joining. Yeah, if you have any questions, thanks.
Thank you for sharing and for the beautiful presentation.
Yeah, thank you.